So we're going to talk today about former UN ambassador and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. And yeah, I'm something of a subject matter expert on the history of this particular politician. She and I go way back. Worked for her, if you want to say that. But that's all been pretty well covered in recent years, so I'm not going to rehash that. In fact, when I address Nikki Haley, I look at her as any other politician, to be honest. And in fact, my news outlet has credited her during her emergence on the national stage. Obviously, have criticized her as well, but she is just another politician to me. They are all up for examination, inspection, and yeah, I'm giggling a little bit as I say that. But in all seriousness, she's somebody who's going to be relevant on the national stage moving forward, particularly in the 2024 election cycle. And so readers deserve, an honest assessment of her. And that means I can't giggle. And I've got to be serious. So I'm going to try my best to do that. But Nikki made some news this week. Gave a speech over the holidays to the Heritage Foundation, which is a big group of neoconservatives or imperialists, warmongers, if you want to call them that. They favor an aggressive interventionist foreign policy, sort of like the one that Haley espoused during her tenure as ambassador to the UN. Just a very aggressive, some would say bellicose view toward other nations, particularly nations viewed as rivals. And in a lot of senses, I've viewed this as sort of a boogeyman type policy. Let's create an enemy because, again, I think it was Oliver Stone in the movie JFK, the character he created for that movie, pointed out that the organizing principle of any society is for war, and that the power of a state over its people resided in its war powers. So obviously that's a powerful lobby in Washington, D.C., and the United States has had, again, the world's largest, most sophisticated military for a long time until obviously the rise of China over the last few decades. So Nikki is a voice on that. She's a credible voice on that, and so her voice matters in the process. Now, what's she aiming for, though? That's kind of the big question, and I guess knowing her as I do, and again, I'm trying not to giggle, but knowing as I do, I think I've got some insight on it. It's no secret she wants to be president. She's wanted to be president from the first time I met her back in 2007. So that's no secret. Can she be president in a Republican primary in which Donald Trump is a candidate? No. She's not going to beat Trump. She's not even going to beat Trump in her home state, South Carolina. So the question then becomes, what's the angle? What are you positioning yourself for, Nikki? And there was a very interesting development back in November when Nikki was granted an audience with Trump at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. And this was significant because for most of the year, Trump had been either ridiculing her publicly or just ignoring her. For example, she sought an audience with him back in February, and he denied her, didn't let her visit him. And the reason was obviously that of all the Republican politicians who came after Trump following the January 6th riots at the Capitol, none of them were more outspoken in going after him than Nikki Haley. None of them. She led the charge. She was the tip of the Never Trump spear, which isn't surprising because, again, regular viewers will recall that Nikki Haley was the tip of the Never Trump spear back in 2016 in the Republican primary in South Carolina and worked very aggressively against Trump in the Palmetto State in that election. So wasn't surprising to see her kind of make that move in the aftermath of the riots. So the meeting between Trump and Haley at Mar-a-Lago is interesting to me because obviously Trump is making a calculation of some sort. And even as a person who has been very quick to point out Haley's hypocrisy on a number of issues, crony capitalism, foreign policy, you name it, spending, tax and spending policy, I've never said she's not a viable national candidate. And in fact, I argued on multiple occasions in the run-up to the 2020 election that Trump would likely have benefited by dumping Mike Pence and putting Nikki Haley on the ticket, which a lot of Haley's people were pushing him to do. Is that what's in the works? Are we looking at a Trump-Haley 2024 ticket? I think that's something to keep an eye on in the coming weeks, because I don't see why Trump would take that meeting unless there was a calculation like that in the offing. I will say this, though. If I'm Donald Trump putting her on the ticket, I'd make sure I raise the salary of my food taster. You're going to need that guy.